All right, thanks for tuning in to the OFN Today with Mark Lawrence of Covers.com for this Friday, the 6th of December, 2019 on the Our Lads Football Radio Network at ourlads.com, the king of online football depth charts and college football scouting. The OFN Today is brought to you in part by Covers.com. Make sure to visit Covers Experts at experts.covers.com, and you can take 50% off any purchase by using the promo code PRIME50. That's PRIME50. Mark, how's it going? Week 14 in the NFL.
I can't believe it already. I mean, we're getting closer and closer to the NFL football playoffs. You know, the college bowl talk is all in the air. We'll know who
Yep.
those bowl pairings are going to be. That's the good news. The bad news, it signals that we're getting closer and closer to the end of the football season, but we will take it for what it's worth. A really good time of the year to be handicapping.
Yeah, as far as college, they got the game starts actually tonight. That's a huge game. If Utah loses, that opens the door for Oklahoma and Baylor winner. So you would have to think that if LSU beats Georgia and Utah loses tonight, the Baylor-Oklahoma winner gets in.
Yeah, it's a lot going to depend upon what happens in this football game tonight. If Utah does go down, I can see Oklahoma really putting their foot on the pedal because it will open the chances for them to not only pass Utah, obviously, but also there's a possibility then that Georgia loses their football game to LSU, as the odds makers anticipate happening, and that would then, I think, open the door for Oklahoma to make the party.
Yeah, I actually my top two picks this week. I'm actually going to go. My top pick, I like LSU. I've been a big Georgia guy for the past couple of years, but I just think now with Cager out, with the freshman receiver out for a half, with Swift banged up, I just think it's too much. It's just if everybody was healthy, that'd be a different story. But they're just not healthy. It's asking way too much. Even we all know LSU can lose and they're still going to get into the playoffs. But I don't think you can convince those players of that. So they know they've got to win this football game just to be sure. And the LSU is just clearly a better team than Georgia. Take away the injuries and forget it. Even with that, I just don't see it. I'm sorry. I think LSU is going to win and cover. And I actually think the game might be a blowout if they get off to a hot start.
Well, then there's me on the opposite side looking at the defensive side of the football game where Georgia holds all the cards defensively.
Yes,
in the
they do.
contest.
Yep.
And their main strength is what might end up being an Achilles heel for LSU in the game. They ranked number 3 in the nation in pass efficiency defense. And Joe Burrow has largely chewed up on weak secondaries this football season. The opponents that they played, they've averaged a ranking of 64 in the country. So he might be a little bit different when he finds this particular football game as opposed to what he's cruised along all season long. I also love the experience factor for Georgia here. They have a ton of players on this roster that have been in this game each of the last 2 years where LSU has not. I think that could weigh heavily as far as experience goes in the football game. And you're also talking about an LSU football team that I'm going to question their strength of schedule here. I know that they did knock off Alabama. They're playing in the Southeast Conference, but this is a step-up game. This is a game to prove their legitimacy here. And I know in the back of their mind, they know that if they lose this football game, they're still going to go to the college football playoff. If Georgia loses this game, they are not going to the college football playoff. So my take is Georgia's going to come with everything they've got, led by that defense and that experience.
All right, let's talk NFL, and we're going to start off with a couple teams who won't have to worry about any of the top players in college football participating this weekend. That'll be in the top 5 of the NFL draft because they're trying to win a Super Bowl. San Francisco and New Orleans. Saints are a 2.5-point favorite. This is a game I know we both agree on. Both going with San Francisco in this one. And yeah, the one thing that does give me apprehension is the fact that the Saints are so good and have been so good lately against quality football teams. That's something that I understand, and I'm worried about that. And San Francisco's coming off a loss, though, and it was a tough loss, but they've covered all 4 of their games this year now as a dog. I think to me, it's one of those games where you've got like the up-and-comers against, the older Drew Brees, guys who are trying to hold on for one more trip. And I think San Francisco, because of their defense, that I'm anticipating the defense is going to be the key here, that Drew Brees will show his age, and the defense and the youth of the 49ers will come through.
I agree with you. I like San Francisco in the game largely because of their defense as well. You've got a New Orleans football team that is not playing as well on the field as the record indicates. They've been outgained in 3 of their last 4 football games. That's not, to me, a good indication of laying points into the league's #1 ranked defense. And we all know about how good New Orleans is at home against 800 or better opponents. They've won the money 14 straight times in a row. But I'm going to wonder how many of those games went up against #1 ranked defenses that were coming off a loss. I'm going to guess none. I like the makeup of this San Francisco team here this year. I think they're going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And being off that loss, I'm going to back them in this football game.
Yeah, and I talked a couple weeks ago. Again, I have Seattle going to the Super Bowl, and I just think that I'm hoping they could find a way to meet in the championship game, because I think those are the 2 best teams in the NFC, Seattle and San Francisco, and we're going to see them play at the last game of the season.
You know what the difference between those two is, though, Greg?
Go ahead, you tell me.
A huge defensive disparity. The Seattle Seahawks rank only number 26 in overall total team defense.
Okay.
San Francisco #1.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when push comes to shove, that could end up being the decision-deciding maker.
Yeah, the thing that I think we saw that in San Francisco. That's why the game at the end of the season, I think, is going to matter. Because if it matters, and if it's whoever wins gets the 1st seed and whoever loses gets the 5th seed, which is very possible, then we know both teams are going to go at it, and like they did the first time they played each other. And so we'll find out if especially Garoppolo. We'll find out if Garoppolo by then can start taking the necessary steps to make the big plays when he needs to make them in the big games. I'm still a little bit worried about that. I know people are critical, and I was also critical of Shanahan last week. 4th and 1, pass. There's a lot of teams that 4th and 1 pass nowadays, even in college. The thing that I think Shanahan needs to change his mind next time. The reason why I think it didn't work, they're not a passing team first. They're a running team first, and they're a defensive team. So don't do what you're not the best of. Now, maybe if you're trying to trick them, okay, I guess. But I just think they need to stick with what's worked for them and not put Jimmy Garoppolo, put it in his hands until he proves he can make the plays. And right there, he didn't make the play. And that's the thing that I would worry about in a big playoff game versus Russell Wilson, because I know Russell Wilson can get the job done. I don't know if Jimmy G can.
Well, that's another good point you make. This goes back to the adage of the old days of football. When you made your way to the Super Bowl, you did it largely because you ran the football and you stopped the run. And that's what San Francisco is doing this year. They're running the football, they're stopping the run, and they're terrific in their pass secondary. I believe it's 10 of the last 12 games they played. They've held their opponents to less than 200 passing yards. So this might not be the defense that Drew Brees is looking forward to playing this Sunday.
Absolutely. We'll see. And the other game at 1 o'clock, this in the AFC is a big one. Baltimore and Buffalo. Another game we both agree on, taking the Bills. It's a 6-point spread. I'm not going to go with the money line on this one, even though it's not a bad idea to sprinkle it in. But I like the 6. You take a look at the fact that Baltimore is coming off the biggest win of the year. Huge physical football game that goes down to the last second. Buffalo was on a Thursday game. Baltimore also, by the way, has got a Thursday night game coming up in a few days on national TV. And sometimes that, we've talked about how players can look ahead at the national televised game. I look at this as a game where maybe they, especially Buffalo, they're such a good defensive team that when you're on this type of winning streak Baltimore's on, sooner or later you're going to make a mistake here or there. And I think Buffalo's the type of team that will be able to capitalize enough defensively to make this a real close nip-and-tuck game like we saw last week with the Niners, which is why I'm going to go ahead and grab the points.
I'm taking the points with you in this game as well. And the one thing that Baltimore fell prey to last week was going up against a very good defense. They're going up against a very good defense here in Buffalo as well. They rank number 3 in the league in overall team defense. They're not getting any respect. They're the Rodney Dangerfield of these playoff hopeful football teams, the Buffalo Bills are. And remember this, Last year, Sean McDermott suffered the worst loss in his NFL career in a season opening game against Baltimore when he got beat down 47-3. He's going to remember that, and so too are the players in this game here. Then you got the flip side about Baltimore coming back to the pack after that big monstrous run they went on. They finally showed a little chink in their armor last week where they won a game and did not cover the spread. And when I see streaks happening, it almost always happens when there's a chink in the armor where a team that's been cruising against the spread finally doesn't win against the spread. It ends up signaling that they're going to go back to the mean. It all adds up to me to Buffalo plus the points in the football game. They're going to take 6, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win this game.
And the next one for them to take that step back would be on the road because Baltimore is 5-1 straight up, 5-0-1 against the spread on the road this year. But still, Buffalo. Matter of fact, Buffalo is. I think they were a home dog only one other time. That was the game against the Patriots that they lost but covered. That's the game that Allen got injured in the second half, and the Bills still had a chance on a couple of possessions to try and win the game, but it couldn't pull it out. Okay, let's go with the big 4 o'clock game. Chiefs and Patriots. This is the first game we are going to disagree on. Patriots are a 3-point favorite. This is, matter of fact, your top pick of the week. And when I take a look at all the reasons why, I mean, I've been down this road many times over the last several years with the Patriots, so I completely understand every reason why you're taking the Patriots. All the Brady in December numbers, home December numbers, all of that, the history. The thing that bothers me is that I think that for the first time, the media has been trying to tear this team apart for years. But for the first time, I'm actually a little bit concerned myself because there isn't no Gronk. There are young receivers out there. It's not like there are guys that have proven it that just haven't gotten it done yet. I don't know how magically they're just going to start scoring points with what they have. Now, if it happens, then that means Harry or Myers or Mohamed Sanu, maybe the running game, even though I go more to Brady, something just clicks. All right, I guess it's possible because they've been down that road many times and they've come ahead many times, especially in December. But I'm going to go ahead and take the Chiefs. Mahomes has covered all 4 of his games as a road dog. They all occurred last year. First time they were a road dog this year. Chiefs have also covered 7 straight away with revenge. I think the Chiefs will get this done and exact revenge, double revenge, after getting swept by the Patriots last year.
Well, for all the good numbers that you mentioned about the New England Patriots in this football game, and there are a ton of them, at home, December, the fact that they were just knocked out of the number 1 playoff seed with that loss last week, there's an equal amount of good numbers for Kansas City here as well. You mentioned the double revenge factor. They were booted out of the playoffs last year. They lost the regular season against them last year. The Mahomes never lost as a dog aspect. Those are all very, very good numbers in Kansas City's favor. So what do we have now when we weigh all those and balance those all off and check and equalize those? We have a New England football team coming home here right now that you got Bill Belichick in a role where he very, very rarely fails, and that's winning big football games this time of the year at Foxborough in December.
Mm-hmm.
You've also got a Kansas City football team that, while they appear to be back on track, they've won their last 2 football games. The Andy Reid trait is coming out in this football team. And when I say that, look at the job that they did in those 2 victories. They were outgained by an average of 100 yards in each contest. They win games and they lose yards. That's the Andy Reid trait, and they can't afford to lose the yardage in this football game, and I believe they will, just given the fact that about this New England defense here, which is for real. The Kansas City defense is suspect. That being the case, I'm going to stay at home with New England in this football game.
Yeah, actually, the thing that it's strange, but what worries me more about this game is Kansas City's offense against the Patriot defense. That's what worries me more because, and we talked about it last week, that Patrick Mahomes has not exactly been lighting it up and having his way over the past month or so. But the defense is actually showing signs of improving at the time that the Chiefs' offense has actually regressed a little bit, and that Patriot defense has led them all year, special teams, touchdowns, and so forth. I could easily see that happening. I could easily see the Patriots, stealing one again. winning like 20 to 14 or something like that. But and look, this is definitely a measuring stick game for the Patriots, because if they lose this game after losing to Houston and Baltimore, wow, I don't know whether or not they have enough left, any magic left. Maybe this is the year, because sooner or later it's going to happen. I don't know when. I don't know if Brady's leaving anytime soon, but you would think sooner or later not think, sooner or later it's going to come to an end. I don't know. We just got to guess whenever that end is going to come.
Well, he's 43 years old, and you would never guess that if you didn't know he was a quarterback for the New England Patriots. He looks like he's 30 years old. He's fit, he's trim, and he's not hurting physically, which is a real key in the football game. On the other side, Patrick Mahomes, I think, is a combination of two things happening to him this year. Number one, the injury that he incurred.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, there's game film on Patrick Mahomes this year, which there wasn't last year.
Sure.
So suddenly this sophomore blues enters into the picture, and you combine sophomore blues with the fact that he's not 100% fit, and he's still being priced accordingly like he is. That's my main concern with Kansas City.
All right, let's go to the Sunday night game, Seattle and the LA Rams. And what's interesting here is the fact you got a pick'em game that it's going to be very important what happens here with the line, because when you take a look at how Seattle does when they're a dog and how the Rams are when they're a dog, it's just huge. So, like, for instance, if Seattle's a dog, they've covered 13 straight as NFC dogs following a straight-up ATS win. If they're a dog, Pete Carroll is 11-1 against the spread as a dog versus 500 or greater division opponents. If the Rams are a dog, they're 0-2 straight up this year. If the Rams are a dog, they're 0-3 straight up and against the spread as a home dog under McVay. So there's some unknowns there. Now, throwing that away, Seattle 5-0 straight up, 4-0-1 against the spread in their last five, 6-0 straight up, 5-0-1 against the spread on the road this year. They've covered four straight in the first of back-to-back road. You know how much I like Seattle, but I am concerned about this game. Sooner or later, Seattle's going to lose another game. When I look at the schedule, I'm thinking it's either this one or the San Francisco game. So I'm not sure which way I'm going yet, but I know you're going with the Rams, and I could definitely I can see that happening.
Well, I can see it happening as well here, Greg. You're taking a look at what I think is a football team flying under the radar in the LA Rams. They started off the season 3-3 to begin the football season here, and everybody jumped off the bandwagon. Now suddenly they're healthy and they're playing good football. They have 7 wins in the football season, but they've been out-yarded only 2 times this year. They're getting the job done on the football playing field. You've got in the head coach in Sean McVay, who where he shines is in division football games, especially from Game 7 on out. He's 8-1 straight up and 7-2 to the spread in that role that he'll be in this particular football game. I alluded earlier about the Seattle defense, which really concerns me. You've got a Seattle football team coming off a Monday night game with a little less rest advantage, if you will, that the Rams have in this contest here. This is a huge football game for the LA Rams to put themselves back into the playoff picture. They're currently the number 8 playoff seed as we speak right now. They're on the outside looking in. This is a big, big football game for them, and I think they get the job done in this contest.
Okay, let's talk about another West Coast game, Pittsburgh and Arizona. Now Pittsburgh's a favorite, so they're not the cutesy dog that you've been able to steal some money on this year. They're a 2.5-point favorite at Arizona. There might be, I'm sure there are people out there that are going, wow, why are the Steelers only a 2.5-point favorite against Arizona? I mean, they've lost 5 straight, Arizona. They're coming off their worst loss of the year. But we would know that there are reasons, and here's kind of a good reason. Just if you take a look at how these trends mirror each other, if you want to take Arizona is 16-2 against the spread in their last 18 at home, including 1-0 this year, versus an opponent off a straight-up ATS win. That's not asking a lot, and 16-2 last 18. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, 0-11 against the spread in their last 11 away games following a straight-up win versus an opponent with a 3.33 winning percentage or lower, which is Arizona. And I just have the feeling that this is just one after the Cleveland game, going out west, looking at the film. There's got to be a drop down psychologically and physically for Pittsburgh. There just has to be. And I think Arizona, yeah, they lost big last week, but look, this is about the future for the program. They know they're going to lose games. It's about just trying to get better every week. And yeah, I think they could forget what happened last week. They just want to go out there and win games and get better every week. And I could see them stealing one against the Steelers this week.
This is one of those rare football games where Arizona might actually have the edge in the quarterback position here.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not going to diss Duck Hodges in that sense because he's done everything he's been asked to do. He's made 2 starts. He's won both of those football games. He got the money in both of those games, and he came off the bench in relief and performed well as well. But now he's changing roles. This is the first time he'll find himself as a favorite in the National Football League, and he has to do it on the road, no less. He's doing it off that big win over the Cleveland Browns last week. That was Pittsburgh's biggest game of the season to get that revenge win back off of that helmet gate loss that they suffered up in Cleveland. Now he's going to take out onto the road, as I say, as a favorite in the football game. You've got Pittsburgh coming into this contest having played 3 straight division games in a row. The last 16 times they've been on the road after facing the Cleveland Browns, they've only won the money 5 times. This is the spot where upsets occur. The public isn't going to see that. They're going to see Pittsburgh. Wow, they just beat Cleveland.
Yeah.
They're inching closer to Baltimore in second place in that division here, and Arizona sucks. That's not the case here. You're going to see, I think, an improved effort by Arizona in this football game. Pittsburgh is definitely beatable in this game, and I think Arizona pulls the rug out on the Steelers.
All right, now let's talk about this Carolina-Atlanta game. Nobody really cares about the game unless you're a Carolina-Atlanta fan. Or you want to put some money on it. And I think this is a good game to put some money on. We both like Atlanta. And a few things I wanted to throw in there. Carolina is 0-11 against the spread following a home game versus a losing opponent off a home loss. So you look at that. You look at the fact that Atlanta. Now, I was going to ask you about this, and then I looked at the playbook guide this week and noticed that you had my answer, which was what happens when a team is on their 3rd straight home game after losing the first 2 games. And the answer is Atlanta, or at least if you take a look at Atlanta, 19-8 against the spread in the last 27 versus division opponents. And again, this is under that 3rd straight home after first 2 losses. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's got to be Atlanta. It could be any team. But under that scenario, teams are 19-8 against the spread in the last 27 versus a division opponent, including 7-1 straight up and 8-0 against the spread. So in other words, if you've lost your first 2 in a 3-game homestand, go ahead and take the home team in game number 3.
And I'm going to do just that. You got a Carolina football team that's in flux right now. Obviously, the firing of Ron Rivera is not sitting well in that locker room. He was a very well-liked head coach. I'm a little bit puzzled about that firing, a little bit head-scratching, but nonetheless, it was done. And he is now history. They've got an interim head coach coaching for them this particular week. The Atlanta Falcons have been a little bit of an up-and-down type football team, if you will. But you've got that situation of these 3 straight home games coming off a pair of losses, as you mentioned here. 7-1 straight up, 8-0 to the spread. The last 8 games when it's a division game, they're playing in that game 3. So it's good news for Atlanta in this football game. I think they still got enough moxie, the Atlanta Falcons, to take care of a Carolina football team that's not only in disarray but without their head coach. A good spot for Atlanta this Sunday.
By the way, because you've talked about, and it came through again with new quarterbacks and how the team responds, because Denver won last week with Drew Lock at quarterback. But what about new head coaches or interim coaches? Have you noticed anything at all? I didn't see anything myself looking through playbook, but it doesn't mean it's not there. So do you have anything on teams and how they respond after their coach gets fired?
Yeah, we do in our database. We have a database listing interim coaches, and for the most part, interim coaches do well in that first football game. Now, it could be a combination of factors because the interim coach is interested in becoming a full-time coach. It could be because the team really, really was at odds with the head coach and wasn't playing well with him, and they liked the new atmosphere. Bottom line here is interim coaches win. They beat the spread 57% of the time on the blind. So that's what will work in Carolina's favor in this football game. But I'm also of the belief that I don't think the players liked that firing. I think they were big Ron Rivera fans. So I think that number could plummet come this week.
Okay. And also, it helps us that Atlanta has won 4 straight up ATS against Carolina and 7 of the last 8. Do we have anything at all on teams, how they respond after Thanksgiving compared to a regular Thursday game?
Well, there's a lot of generalities about how teams respond. The best role of which was against the Dallas Cowboys Thursday night,
Okay.
when teams lose straight up as a favorite on Thursday night. They just don't come back. I mean, they fall flat. They disappointed not only their fan base, but the people that backed them. And we saw that from the Dallas Cowboys Thursday night. It also signals to me, and I tweeted this out today, that I think it's the end of the road for Jason Garrett. Yeah, the
It's
Clapper.
over.
I mean, this football team. Yeah, the football team. This is mind-boggling to me. I mean, this team is 6-7 on the season. They've outgained 12 of their 13 opponents. I've never seen anything like that.
Because
That's a sign of a team
talent-wise, it's not like everybody's healthy again. Nobody's hurt. This is a good football team on paper. This is a bad division. The Cowboys should right now have 10 wins.
Well, they should have 10 wins, and the players are playing. The coach is not coaching here. I think they've got a bad case of the clap. They have to get rid of the clapper in Dallas if they want to move forward.
I understand sometimes when teams hold on to coaches, and especially it might be, well, you know what, we're just going to go with it, see if we can squeak into the playoffs. We'll give it one more chance. He deserves it. Maybe he could save his job. But everybody knows that this is not getting turned around. They are not winning a Super Bowl. So even if they get to the playoffs in a bad division, they're still going to fire him. Everybody knows it. And you know what? I actually believe in the Urban Meyer rumors. I could easily see Urban Meyer as the head coach with the Dallas Cowboys. He has done everything he needs to do in college. The next step is to prove whether or not he can be a big boy in the NFL. I could see that working. So whether it's Lincoln Riley or Urban Meyer, we know he's going to get fired. Why wouldn't you fire him now and see if you can strike gold with one of your assistants? He's got an assistant coach on his staff that was interviewed last year several times for head coaching jobs. So he doesn't have anybody on his staff. He even has, I believe he's got a coach on his team that's been a head coach. So why don't you hand it over to somebody and see if lightning strikes? Because lightning has a better chance striking doing that than continuing down this road. It's just not going to change.
I'll tell you why it's not going to change here, Greg. And I'm not going to say, and I don't want to get into politics here, but there's a commonality between Jerry Jones and Donald Trump, and it's that they both have massive egos. Jerry Jones is not going to admit the fact that it was a bad decision that he made in hiring Jason Garrett. He can't let go.
So he's
of
trying
that.
to go. This is his last chance. In other words, he's doubling, tripling down. Okay.
Exactly right. Okay. But until he comes to the realization that it is not or was not a good hire, and currently the situation is bottomed out, the situation is going to remain the same in Dallas. So now to change him right now in midseason, I can understand perhaps maybe why he doesn't, because you very, very rarely will find a coaching change in a team in the National Football League where the team improved and then went from a non-playoff position to making the playoffs. That's really, really rare, because that new interim coach doesn't command the respect in the locker room of the players. They look at him as a substitute teacher, if you will. So it may not, or logically won't happen this year, but it definitely has got to happen before the start of the next football season.
All right. By the way, I wanted to talk about quickly this Charger-Jacksonville game, because the Jags have lost 4 straight games by 17 or more. Minshew now is the quarterback. So see, I don't know if this is a Marone problem, which I believe it is, or it could be okay that Minshew comes back in and it lights a fire because with Minshew, I was noticing the stats at Playbook. He's 4-1 straight up, 5-0 against the spread versus teams following a loss, which is this week with the Chargers coming off a loss. All the Chargers' losses have been by one score or less this year. So the Chargers continue to fight, no matter how inept they are, whether it's the coaching staff or the quarterback. They can't get the job done and win games late, where the Jags have just been blown away. So you can look at it in so many different ways to decide which way to go here. Plus, the Chargers have not been at home since the Green Bay win back in early November. Every game that they played have been on the road or in Mexico. So I don't know what to. This is just a crapshoot for me of which way to go. But who do you like? Do you feel confident about this game?
I don't feel confident about the game. If you had asked me if there's any three games that I would not be looking at, this would be one of the three. Basically, because you have two teams that are heading south, if you will, right now as we speak. The Chargers have to be pulling their hair out, playing all these close football games and not winning any of them. I think that's going to end up hurting a team more than it's going to help a team down the stretch. The other side of the coin, Jacksonville, I mean, they realized they made perhaps one of the largest financial mistakes that they've made in hiring away Nick Foles to be their quarterback. They're going backwards on that right now, and they're going to live with Gardner Minshew for the rest of the football season here. So, more talent here to the LA Chargers, probably more reason for them to play, but they got a head coach, Anthony Lynn, that I think is next on the chopping block here as well. So
okay,
yes, you got a head coach here that is not getting.
What about the
job
GM?
done. Yes.
I think the GM needs to go too. Telesco.
Well, I think the owner needs to go too. He's Dean Spanos,
right.
and the only reason he's an owner is because he was born into the family, into the Spanos family, and the father died, and he inherited the franchise. And he's terrible as an owner, just absolutely terrible. So everything rots from the head down. In the Charger situation here, it's rotting from the Spanos family on down. From the move they made of moving out of San Diego to Los Angeles to where they are right now, I think that just epitomizes everything about the Chargers and the state of their football.
Now they're opening that new stadium next season. So the Rams and the Chargers will be playing in the same stadium.
Yes, they will, like the Giants.
Yeah, why was there some rumor about the Chargers being a London team or something? Why would that even be a rumor if they were going to go into this new stadium?
One, because they're getting zero support in Los Angeles these days. Los Angeles fans don't come out. They stay at home, they eat their sushi. They could care less about football in that city. So now they're going to be asked to support two teams in this big, mega huge venue. Will it be the Chargers? Will it be the Rams? Or will it be none of the above? I'm going to vote none of the above. I think.
I know, right? Chargers.
I think the city's going to have a hard time getting behind either team. The field's going to be spectacular, the venue. But what's it going to look like when you got this beautiful, massive 70,000 seat stadium and you're seeing 20,000 people in the stadium here? It's not going to be a good look.
And I know Phillip Rivers hasn't delivered a Super Bowl, hasn't been in a Super Bowl, but I think it's going to be one of those situations where when he leaves, Charger fans are gonna realize what they've missed, because if they don't get themselves a quality quarterback, maybe this draft, but real soon, I think the franchise is in big trouble, because at least he's been their identity, where they're going to be. You can always. Hey, it's Rivers, so they can always win. There's always a chance. But if you take Phillip Rivers out of that equation, and with no fan support, just the way the franchise is run, I could see that franchise getting bad as far as production on the field real fast.
If they're not bad already, I mean, it could dissipate.
That's why I'm saying it can get worse, which I think.
Yes, it can get worse,
and it probably will.
Exactly.
So.
I believe it will, yes.
All right, Mark, everything else going fine with Playbook.com and especially Covers.com?
Yeah, everything's going real good. The Playbook football newsletter is doing real well. That's available for customers out there at Playbook.com. We publish 3 weekly newsletters filled with lots of great stats and facts and information. And you can also get all of my selections at Covers.com.
Appreciate it as always, Mark. Great job. We'll talk to you next week.
Hey, my pleasure as always, Greg. Be good. Enjoy the games. I'll catch you.